Hey everybody, welcome. We have another edition of the Loan Consultant Lowdown. Today we have a tremendous guest with us all the way from the East Coast in Maryland. We have with us Ramez Fahmy. Ramez has been with the company a long time, and I say that jokingly. He's supposed to laugh right now, but no, he is one of the founding pillars of our retail division, and I'm really excited for you to hear about what makes him so successful and all of the terrific things he's done here at Caliber. So thank you, Ramez, for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's an honor.
And you can see he actually dressed up. I did not, and so that shows you the dedication that we have from this team. So I'm going to start with the easiest question, and I'll warn you that I am, the 60-minute reporters and me, we're like one-on-one. I'm going to ask the tough, hard-hitting questions that people want to know. So the first one is, how did you get into this crazy business? How did you, what did you dream when you were, 5 years old playing with a truck and said, I want to be a mortgage banker?
Exactly. You must have done a lot of research. No, honestly, I was graduating from the University of Maryland and I was looking for an opportunity. I had a degree in finance and I was trying to figure out what to do. Interviewed at a bunch of different companies, and then we had some friends who were in the mortgage business in 1993 who had just got done a big, huge refi boom and driving around nice cars, and I was like, let's give it a shot.
Wow.
And started at a small company, and that's when I linked up with guys like Dan Anastasi and Chris Washburn.
So was the first job, was it like loan officer assistant, or was it as an actual loan officer, or which type of role?
I started off as a loan officer.
Okay.
So it definitely took some time to ramp that business up. And there were times that I questioned, should I be in the mortgage business? My boss at the time told me, you're doing all the right things, keep going out there and doing it, and it'll click for you eventually. So
you must have made a good impression, just because typically when you hear, right, if you're coming without the experience, right, you come in as an assistant or helping somebody else, and you'll see as some of our other interviews. So you must have really set up well in that interview to come in as that loan officer right off the bat.
Yeah. So I started off as a loan officer off the bat, and I was bartending and trying to be a loan officer at the same time so I could make a few bucks while I was trying to get my first deals in the door.
Isn't that called prospecting, bartending? That was how you're building referral partners?
Yeah, I guess. Lots of different prospecting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what is your, when we think of our business, right, where you've evolved to, what is your team? Do you have a team? What does that look like in terms of, your support and that structure, if you will?
Sure.
Or is it just you?
Yeah, well, I would say that I do every single pre-qualification. I have an amazing assistant, Michael Silverstein, who's been my best friend since we were like in the 5th grade. I hired him away from like Ernst & Young probably 10, 12 years ago. He was like an IT guy there, and he's totally organized, but I do the majority of the pre-approvals, the initial upfront estimates, and then once I can get a client to agree to moving forward with us, from disclosure to closing, he handles a lot of that communication. I'm copied on every single email. I'm a control freak. So I do like to know what's going on with every loan. I'm not a kind of app and dump kind of guy. And so we do a really good job, and we've got a great operations team here at Caliber. And that's kind of it.
So the two of you, 100 million, the two of you.
Yep.
And if I'm not mistaken, from your purchase, right? So your purchase, and I saw it through August, you were just over 40 million in purchase, and so you'll probably be what, 60 million in purchase for the year?
I think close to that, yeah. And I would say that still be my biggest purchase year as well. And we've added new agents even through COVID because a lot of people haven't performed at other companies, and they talk to their friends and they say, who do you like?
Yeah.
And so we've picked up a few agents along the way. And in our market, in the DC market, there's this whole urban to suburban migration happening. And so people who are in 500 square foot co-ops who are married and have a kid now, and they're all working out of their homes, and the amenities that are close by really are worthless to them because they were all closed for 3 months.
Wow.
So
Yeah, that's, I mean, that I got to tell you, that volume, and it's not like, I mean, you have higher loan amounts in other areas, but I mean, when you look at units, you're going to be well over 200, 200 some units. So it's
yeah,
not as like you're doing $1 million loans every time. I mean,
yeah.
that's true. Two people, truly impressive. I mean,
I've probably
wow.
done like 2 jumbo or 3 jumbo loans all year.
Yeah. I mean, that's that. Wow. Wow.
A lot
So
of hours.
yeah. So when you think about, it's just the two of you, and then you've built your referral network. Is it pretty much, how much is realtor versus builder? Is there a mix in there?
100% realtor
Okay.
and past customer referrals.
Right. And then do you have a brand, Ramez, or do you, is it,
Um, the Fahmy mortgage team.
there you go.
Brand.
Fahmy mortgage team. There we go.
Yep.
And when you think of it, if you had to think of one word that you want people when they see the Fahmy mortgage team, what word do you want them to think of?
Reliable.
That's good.
If you go out and look at most of the reviews that we have online, a lot of the social surveys, the Google and all those things, we do a lot of hand holding. We're responsive, and we're transparent.
Wow. And I mean, reliable, I think that at the end, that covers so many different words, right? As you think about it.
Yeah. I mean, the agents know when they reach out to us or reach out to me that I'm going to call them back right away. They're not going to have to wait a long time to get a response. When they need a borrower pre-qualified, the borrower is going to get pre-qualified thoroughly. And they're going to be asked questions like, not what do you qualify for, but like, what are you interested in paying? How much money do you have set aside for buying a home? We help back them into that number so that they're not biting off more than they can chew.
Yeah.
And people appreciate that.
For sure. I mean, that's just the basic piece. So you mentioned, your team, and then you mentioned operations briefly. I'm going to go back there. So you have the Fahmy team, but then you have your processors, your underwriters, your closers, who I'm sure with your experience, they feel just as much as part of your team as anybody. Is there any tips that you have on that you think make the successful partnership between operations and sales?
Yeah, 100%. You respect your referral part, respect your ops team, say thank you, build good rapport with them, and they'll help you out when you need help.
Yeah.
And we're not a team that asks for a lot of rushes or anything like that. We do a very good job at being very thorough up front. So when that loan gets submitted to underwriting, it normally comes out with very few conditions.
Yeah. So, it's funny, we do these, it's not, I guess it's not funny, it's interesting and factual. As we've done these interviews, that question, it's amazing on how simple it is, right? It's courtesy, it's communication, it's completeness, and that drives the teamwork. But, in the chair that I sit in, it's amazing how so many originators just miss that piece. And that's really one of the great things about these interviews, is people can hear the commonality of, not just Caliber's top producers, but industry producers on what makes it successful. And, it just never ceases to amaze me. It's the simplest thing that makes that work.
Don't bully your support staff.
We should put that on your mug, right?
Okay, yeah, that's not bad.
Stitch that on a pill. I mean, it's so simple. It's so simple. So, we talked a little bit, about, your team, your process. Today's world, we have H2O, right? And you use that. But is there any other element of technology or of software that at this point you couldn't live without? Like I used to joke back in the day, right? This is what you couldn't live without. But is there anything? Oh, there you go. Yeah. Exactly. Is there anything that you use that? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just in terms of communication.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no, I don't use mortgage. Excuse me.
So you picked it up and it rang.
Yeah, no, my alarm. No, I don't use mortgage reports or, any of that sort of stuff. I really use what's in the system. I use loan options a fair amount. I do my closing cost worksheets for the most part out of H2O. I don't have Excel spreadsheets and things like that, because I know that my capture rate is going to be pretty high. So why use an outside system then turn around and have to input it again into our system?
Yeah, no,
So
that makes complete
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So
Again, some of the simplest things.
yeah.
So you've been doing this. So you started a number of years ago, a little over 20 years ago, and obviously somebody who's going to produce at your level 100 million. But even back in 2003, when you were in the 70s, either after the 2003, before now, or even before 2003, was there ever a point like where you said, or you were doing good, but maybe you just made a change either to your process or something you were doing that just changed the course and helped you become, super successful?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, so I started in 1994, right? So I'm 26 years right out of college. And for the first 5 years, I never followed up with a past customer. And we had some buddies who worked at another mortgage company who had this like monthly mailer that they sent out. And at the time I went to my manager, I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, you're not going to get any business out of that. He goes, you just go get more loans. I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to try it. And if I can get some business out of it, maybe you'll help me pay for it. And within a couple months, I was getting 2 or 3 deals a month out of it. So I would say communicating with your past customers, and we use AMP. AMP is a great tool for that here. And, Jody and her team have good content. It's like, it's plug and play with the different campaigns that are out there, from the prospect campaign, those sort of things, just staying in front of people. And, early on into Caliber, they had talked about putting your names on the statements and things like that. And this 100 million that I'm doing, the refinances, I can tell you, I've not made one outbound call asking, if we did that, I mean, I probably need to hire a couple more people, but it's all been inbound calls.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. So, you and I often will trade emails on strategies and ideas. And so I know you're thinking 5 years out, right? You're a young guy, you still have time to continue to build this business. What do you think, if you look ahead 5 years, what do you think changes the most in, retail purchase mortgage banking?
I just have seen in the last 5 years, like how much technology like Caliber has brought, and then the industry has sort of followed up, but I think Caliber's been a market leader in that space. I think it's going to be more technology, more speed, because the real estate community now demands much faster turn times than they once did. What's going to separate one borrower from the next is going to be speed, removal of the hurdles, the contingencies, things like that. That to me is what, becoming more efficient, becoming more competitive pricing wise. But, the reliability factor is huge, because until they get rid of real estate agents, they're not going to get rid of retail loan officers. Right? Because in most marketplaces, people do not want to see a pre-approval letter coming from a big money center bank, one of the big credit unions, when you're online, lenders, and everyone knows who they are, and they lose a few contracts because they're not dealing with someone local. It's a big deal. I mean, people talk about it, but it's true.
Well, and to your point, it's not because you can't work with a client or a customer remotely. What it is it's that referral partner who has to have a trusted relationship with you, and the fact that you're in that market, and you're going to run into them at the grocery store or the restaurant or wherever else, and they feel and build that trust. That's very hard to replicate from 1,000 miles away with the referral partner. And I think you're bringing up, and the stats prove it. You've probably seen it. Millennials are more likely to use a realtor and depend on their referral than any of the other age groups, Gen X and baby boom before.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, say, listen, you can use whomever you want. And I said, your loan will probably go fine. But if something goes wrong, it's not going to be my fault. And because I have this rapport with your agent, if it is my fault, they're going to have someone's feet to hold to the fire to make this problem go away. Now, if you deal with me and you deal with the title company that your realtor involved, refers you to, you kind of have this dream team.
Right.
Many times issues that come up are resolved before you ever hear about it because we've taken care of it. Well, when one of the people in this dream team isn't there, that can fall by the wayside pretty quickly.
Yeah. So would it be your opinion that lenders such as Caliber, as we think of technology and enhancements we have to make, it really needs to be that back end focus of how do you do a better job of providing customers insight into the process, the conditions, all with the intent of just collapsing down that cycle time on a transaction? You think that's where the investments need to be?
Yeah, I think the investment is in that piece for the borrower's sake. And then just as far as for loan officers, just making it so that a loan officer can generate an estimate faster, be more accurate about it, give him more options. And those are the things that I know over time have improved. And obviously there's always still room for improvement, but those are the sort of things that I think will make life easier for people. But nothing replaces the hard work of the loan officer.
Yeah.
you know
So thinking back on your career, is there, so somebody, one of the challenges in our industry, as you know, is there was a period of time where we didn't see a lot of new loan officers coming in, and we're now trying to turn that as an industry. But as you see newer people come in to the business, even if they're new to the business, but they've been in sales, is there a piece of advice that you think people just don't tend to listen to that you think would really help get somebody's career moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I mean, as far as sort of the selling piece of it is, make sure you're always following up with when you're trying to get referral partners to start dealing with you. Just because you took them out to lunch doesn't mean, all of a sudden you're going to start getting all this business out of them. Their referrals, make sure you're following up with them. And then once you've closed that loan, make sure that you're continuing to follow up with them. I think a lot of loan officers are given bad advice that you're basically a loan app taker and that your ops team is going to do the rest for you. If that's how you're going to try and build your career, it's not going to go very far, and it's not going to go very well, because you're the guy, you're the quarterback, and when the transaction goes bad or there's problems along the way, you can't blame your underwriter or your processor or your assistant. It's on you, right? Because the agent A or B or whoever's referring you business didn't hire my assistant to make sure this loan went well. They hired me to do it, or the borrower did. So to me, that's super important that you know what's going on with your pipeline, that you're having daily or weekly pipeline meetings. What I would tell you is, and Chris Washburn and I, and Chris has been on these calls before, and he's the top of the top. And Chris and I started at the same time. I knew him in high school. We went to college together. The reason why he's a lot more successful than me in this business and does a lot more volume is because he worked a lot harder earlier in his career. Guy worked 80 hours a week for the last 26 years. And that's why he does the production that he does. I've done well, but I didn't work as hard as he did for all those years. I've always worked hard, but not as hard as Chris.
Wow. So when you think about, it is fascinating, right? When you reflect back on advice, there's so many people that are going to want to sell somebody a new piece of software, a new piece of technology, do this, coach that, etc. But what we consistently hear and out of tremendous producers such as yourself is it's the basics, right? It's get the basics right, be a good salesperson, put in the time, understand your pipeline, do what you say you're going to. It is the golden rules, if you will. And it is fascinating to hear. So that you may have answered this indirectly, but you started out, it's not, you've obviously had and worked for and with some great people. Do you have one specific mentor, or do you have multiple mentors? And is there anything that you'd share about what those mentors provided to you over the years?
Sure. I would say there's probably three people who I've worked with throughout the years who I've kind of looked to for advice. One's retired from the company, and one's the president of another mortgage company.
Okay.
Right. Chris Washburn and I have worked together since 1994. We were both loan officers together. We came up together. He was he became the sales manager. He became the branch manager. I was his sales manager. And then when we got to Caliber, Dan Anastasia was nice enough to give me an opportunity to kind of open up the office in Bethesda that I now co-manage with Bob Kirshner.
Yeah.
And then one of the guys, Mike Twigg, was a guy who hired Dan into the business and me into the business and Chris into the business. And there's another guy, Steve Lagana, who's one of my very best friends, who's the president of another mortgage company. And, he's my brother's best friend.
Wow.
And those are the people who kind of brought me up in the business.
Mm-hmm.
Things that Chris's main saying is work hard. That is his number one, tagline. Others say knowledge is king, right? Understand what you're putting people into. It's not a sales job. You're like a financial consultant to people.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to sell people, they're going to be able to tell you're trying to sell them.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. Okay, now this is the hard part. We're into the more of the personal type questions. And this one here, this has been one of my favorite questions. What was your first paying job as a youngin'? What was your first paying job?
My first paying job that I actually got a check for was I worked in a snack bar at our local pool.
Okay.
I've also worked as a lifeguard. I delivered pizzas at Domino's. I was a bartender. I was a waiter, and I'm a mortgage banker.
Okay.
But I tell people all the time that I think waiters are great people to hire for the mortgage business. Why is that? Because you have multiple tables and you have multiple people getting seated at different times throughout the process, just like no different than a mortgage.
Yeah.
People sit down, you got to qualify them, then you got to take their order, and then they're along the process, and you have to be able to bounce back and forth and treat everyone like they're the only person in the room when you're talking to them.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about so Ramez, what if you weren't in more? What if that never happened? You graduated with your finance degree. What do you think you'd be doing if it wasn't the mortgage business?
Probably like a stockbroker or maybe selling software. Those are the probably other two things. I thought about going to law school at one point in time, but
Yeah.
I didn't go that route. So
Yeah. How do you deal, 100 million, you and one person, just customers call, all the stuff we've talked about. How do you deal with the stress?
I've got a great support system at home. I have a lovely wife I've been married to for 21 years. And I can kind of dump on her every once in a while, like, the heartache of the day when we've been working from home primarily for those first number of months. I'd get up in the morning, I'd go downstairs to the office, and she wouldn't see me until 10, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So
that's support system. That's key.
I think a support system, a few cocktails, a little bit of meditation, but mainly I'm going to give my wife 100% credit for that.
No, that's great.
Yeah.
What's your, so I know you don't have much time outside of work, but what's your favorite hobby, your pastime outside?
I've carted a lot of rounds of golf this year. That's the one thing you can do socially distanced.
Yeah.
I love traveling, but haven't done a ton of that this year, right?
No.
A couple of trips canceled. You're probably aware of at least one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, and I like skiing. I like scuba diving. I haven't done any of that in a year, but so golf and hanging out with my family and my kids, and so
very, very sporty. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this has been just a tremendous opportunity to share what you've done, how you've built your business, and I'd like to just end it by simply saying thank you. And we've done a lot of these interviews, and some folks have been here a couple of years, some have been here as long as you have. And when you join this company, obviously I know the timing. I mean, to say that we as Caliber knew much about, I mean, it was infancy stages, right? I mean, I've heard the jokes.
30 loan officers, I think, at the company when
Right.
our group joined.
Yeah.
When our group joined, it was sort of like our little DC group and the Indiana group. And if you look at the numbers, most of those people that are on that list are on the first page of your production report still to this day.
That's right.
And we've created great relationships with those folks across the country. And when we have questions, I can pick up the phone and call someone like Jack Overy or Mark Lewin, or they'll call me because they know FHA better and we know conventional better,
No, it's, and I think just from my perspective as being, on the news side, you should feel so proud of what you've contributed to, and forget even Caliber, just you went in, you've built your business, but you've built a company and in retail. But I think there aren't many times in our industry where, I mean, there's a lot of great loan officers, right, who work at Wells Fargo or some other big bank or some other, but one of the side things, right, to come in and be patient and deliver and see, something that was, 30 loan officers now at 1,400, and then, what you've done on your business. And then I would just thank you for how many you've touched over the years, right, in terms of those phone calls or those advice. And so as somebody who gets who has the privilege of leading retail and having people like you out there, I can't thank you enough. And I
appreciate it. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Home Connection podcast from Caliber Home Loans. Please see the show notes for links to topics discussed in this episode, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.